All right, moving over now, we're going to talk golf Canadian Open with the lovely Craig Edwards here, pulling out those big odds as always, I am sure. Hello, Craig. Did you learn anything from Russ's? I know you were setting those questions. Did you learn anything? Do you agree with his tips?
Yeah, I thought I'd had a little bet on Poland, so I was kind of curious because I thought there were, you know what I'm like for a big price, and thought there was a shred of value. And like you said, it's worth a small each way bet, but you know, it was good reasoning that he gave that that's all it was worth. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It was I like the darts.
What about name the finalists though? Because those odds were a little bit more up your alley. I think what they were
Well, I
like
didn't look at
30.
name the finalists, but if Wales and Poland are in opposite halves, I will be interested. Yes, I don't know if they are.
You've got, I'm just trying to pull out, I've got cricket odds. I've got cricket odds at the moment, just from, I'll take a peek. But listen, let us start off with, so Canadian Open. First question, obviously, that I was quite surprised when I looked at the odds was why just Dustin Johnson was the favourite for this tournament and not Brooks Koepka,
Yeah.
Koepka, who just disposed of him as number one. Shouldn't he be the favourite?
For me, yes. I think they've got similar chances, but there's a lot more chance that Brooks will win the tournament if he gets in the van than Dustin. Dustin's strike rate is not what Brooks is. So, yes, at the odds, I'd much rather take Brooks every day of the week, although I'm not convinced this course will suit either. If the reports are right from a few years ago, it's not really a course that's going to be overpowered. So kind of, it's nice for the Canadian Open that they've gone there the week before the US Open, but I'm kind of surprised that they've gone there the week before the US Open. You know, I'm sure Tiger's rubbing his hands for next week, and it's like I say, I'm not convinced the course will suit either player.
Yeah. So that leads me on to my next question there. What sort of course is the Canadian Open and who does it suit?
Well, it's held the Canadian Open 3 times at Hamilton, the Hamilton course. It's in Ontario, and it's set in secluded heavy woodland. It's quite a similar track from what I can gather to the ones that at Colonial and at Hilton Head, where they play the Charles Schwab and the RBC Heritage just recently. It's a course which will suit fairways and greens type players. Although there's reports on social media today that they have removed a significant amount of the woodland from the last tournament in 2012 to now. And so whether that will make a difference, that's only kind of come out today, that fact. So I shouldn't think it will make too much of a difference, because still the course will be sculpted the same, and the premium will be on. It sounds like, from what Jim Furyk said, that you need to hit the right part of the green to leave yourself the uphill putt, and you need to strategically plot your way around the course. So Dustin Johnson, obviously Brooks Koepka could win, but their power game will not have any effects. They will have to win with their, with their finesse more than their power.
Yeah. Why do you think that they're playing this before the US Open?
Well, I think the Canadian Open is a big open. It's behind the British Open and the US Open. It's got the longest history of any golfing contest. So it's got a lot of history. So you can understand that they'll want it on their resume when their career ends. It's just that this year's scheduling, it's come the week before the US Open. So I got to admire them for going, but it will be a completely different test the next week, and I'm kind of surprised that they've both gone. I wouldn't rule out Brooks Koepka. Obviously, if he gets away again, he may well win, but he's not going to overpower this course. There's no way on earth.
Yeah.
So
And I've got Tiger Woods not playing then? Because you're saying, he's rubbing his hands. His players are going to go and play. Why is he not? He knows that you need to rest, and he's already got it on his career sheet.
Yes, he's played it a few times in his younger part of his career, not in his latter part. As scheduling's become more important, he's pretty much only going to play the minimum requirement of tournaments on the PGA Tour, which will be about 15. He's not been doing many more than that for a long time, and probably if Brooks Koepka is going to dominate the sport the way Tiger Woods has done and keep the myths surrounding his play, as well as the sharpness, he may well have to reduce his schedule to about 15 tournaments in a season. Because the travel, the change of time zones and everything, week to week, they finish late on a Sunday, they're going to be playing again early on a Thursday. Even though they are super fit sportsmen, it is not, it's wear and tear. So, I think Tiger will be happy. He'll just turn up at Pebble Beach, which he knows well, and he'll prepare for next week, and they'll still be travelling, I suppose.
Yeah. So is there something, obviously, that we can take? So obviously we're going to make our bets out for this tournament, but is there going to be sort of like informational things that you will learn from the Canadian Open that we can then take with us to the US Open?
I don't think there'll be a lot. The only thing you will learn is what players are coming into form that haven't been in form. That's always worth keeping an eye out for. Players that have been not really doing it this season, then suddenly they look for a better performance. Those are the sort of players I look for. Players that have had an improved performance one week, and it's given their confidence a little nudge. They've found a little tweak in the game, and the next week it comes together. But overall, the course now, next week the US Open, even par or over par, will win at Pebble Beach, and this week it'll be well under par. It'll be it'll be quite an easy course and a test in comparison. So, no, I don't think we're going to learn a lot, really.
All right. Now, let's get to the meat and gravy, or whatever you call it. I was looking at some bets myself, because I'm thinking, wonder what he's going to go for. So, Bubba Watson, get him at 34. You quite like betting on Bubba Watson. Does he...
I do.
Yeah. Does he suit well for this course?
He doesn't float my boat one little bit for this course, I'm afraid. I think it's just going to be too much of a fiddly exam for him. I know that there's other people that will say differently. Bubba's been playing well all season. So obviously he's got the class, but...
not for this course.
Not for this course. He would be pretty much one of the early ones off my list.
Yeah.
But he has been playing well this season, and, you'd never want to totally say a proven winner like Bubba's not going to win, but I'm comfortable not betting Bubba this week.
All right. Then there is Jim Furyk, and you were saying that obviously he's been telling how you must play this course. So he's obviously got a very good idea, and a nice juicy 51 there with Ladbrokes and William Hill. Are you putting some money on him?
Yeah, it's definitely Jim Furyk. It's his sort of course. He played well last week at Memorial. He didn't quite he got to the top of the leaderboard a couple of times, or the first page, and fell away. This week's test will suit him a little bit more. He's a specialist from the Heritage and Colonial, and he'll know how to plot his way around this course. Back in the world's top 50 now on this good season that he's having. I like Jim Furyk. And let's not forget, he won here in, I think it was 2006 in the Canadian Open. So he's got all that experience to draw on, and travelling back to a course where you've won in the past, your endorphins go up, and that then means your biorhythms become in tune. And in a hand-to-eye coordination sport like golf and snooker, to be that little bit more relaxed helps you play to that absolute peak that you're capable of. And I'm a great believer in endorphins and biorhythms from travelling back to venues you've done well in before. Even as you're travelling, you're starting to relax. You're relaxing, looking forward to the week, even if you're out of form, because you've got such positive memories from there. They're some of your best times. And I always like to have players like that on my side. And so Jim Furyk just fits every criteria this week. The only he's just getting older. He's 49, but he still plays like a spring chicken, and he's been such a solid player for 30 years. He'll give anyone a good run for the money each way.
Yeah, yeah. And what about Brooks Koepka? Obviously, we've spoken about him. I know he's super low, but surely we've got to put a, on the number one here. You've got to put a bid, or you're just like, no, those odds are not even worth me taking my hand out of the pocket and making the bet. Or is that's what you're just like, no.
The other thing is that he will have half an eye on next week, so he may be tweaking his game. He may not be totally focused. His focus will probably be on the US Open. Obviously, Brooks Koepka can, if he plays well and puts well, he can pick the field up and probably win by 8 shots. But no, I'll be overlooking him this week. Probably look back at him next week at the US Open, where puts a lot more pressure on people's games.
All right, so you're going on Jim Furyk. What are your tips here, betting heading into the Canadian Open?
Right, so one interesting bet is a guy we bet at the Colonial about 3 weeks ago, Kevin Tway. His father was the champion at this course, Bob Tway, in 2002. And I've got a feeling Kevin Tway's just coming into form. He showed up well that week we tipped him. He just didn't quite finish the job off. And he's never played at this course before, but he is a type of player that plays well at Colonial, so I've got to believe he'll play well here. He may have them positive memories of his dad winning here, strangely enough. And, it would be quite a thing for a father and son to win the same competition. Most golf playing sons, there's plenty of them, but most of them aren't really good enough to win tournaments. And he's already won the Safeway Open on tour this season. So Kevin Tway, each way, 80 to 1 plus. I think there's still a bit of 100 to 1 about. Scott Piercy looks to have a solid chance. Played well at the Heritage Colonial. He won here. He was the last winner here in 2012 for all the same reasons. So that's a totally easy pick. Funny player got for a top 20 finish is Josh Teeter, a 40-year-old veteran on the PGA Tour. Back here in 2012, he was 4th. He was in quite a rich vein of form, probably the form of his life. And last time up at Colonial, he made a top 20 finish. I nearly backed him because he's a real Colonial course specialist. It's the one place he plays well at, year in, year out. And so I'm taking him to carry that form over this week into the top 20 finish. Mm-hmm. And Bud Corley in a top 20 finish was placed here in 2012. And last week was his best week all season by a long way. So he's going to be a solid top 20 finish. And finally, I'd put up Ryan Palmer, who's, again, a Colonial, similar type player to Furyk and Piercy, and he tends to either miss the cut or finish in the top 10. So he's quite a sporting each way bet for people, often gets in the top 5 or 6 places, and has won a couple of times on the PGA Tour as well. Mm-hmm. So I think you have quite a good mix there of players. I quite like Brendan Todd, who's got in as first alternate today. He's on the comeback trail, having been in a dreadful slump of form, and he pre-qualified for the US Open. I've been following him a while now, and I think he's teetering on getting back to his best form. So, but the bookies, because he's got in as first alternate, haven't really priced him up yet. So probably they will price him tomorrow, and anything over 200 to 1, people could have a little each way bet.
I'm sure you would. All right, fantastic stuff. Canadian Open. If you want to read the full article, head on over to worldsmarket.com on the tips page. And wonderful stuff. Craig Edwards at Edwards tips _. A pleasure, Craig, as always. Best of luck.
Yeah, absolute pleasure.
With all those high odds, and I'll speak to you soon.
See you soon, Natalie. Good night.
All right, bye-bye.